All right, so I'm going to start out by introducing myself and the panel and go into why we were all here today in Orlando, Florida at the Commodity Classic. First, thank you all for joining us this morning. My name is John Farner. I am the Global Chief Sustainability Officer with Netafim, and we're here to talk about today. The title of the presentation is Maximizing Profit and Nutrient Utilization with Netafim's Subsurface Drip Irrigation for Manure Effluent. The award-winning, right, Alessia, the award-winning solution for this. So I'll go in to first introduce our panel, our experts. These guys are the ones that are going to have the most content and the information. I'm just here to drive all of the discussion and make sure we leave time for audience interaction as well. So I'll remind the panelists to speak into the microphone, otherwise the boss over there in the corner will come to me, and nobody wants that. So because this is being recorded, we'll make sure everyone can hear later on what we have to say. So Adam, why don't we start out with you? Introduce yourself, where you're from, and briefly why you're here.
Yeah, my name is Adam Zeltwinger. I'm from Morris, Minnesota. I work with a large dairy company. I'm an employee and an owner there. And I got invited to speak with these guys on subsurface drip irrigation because we are using the technology around our farms for nutrient management.
Okay, my name is Kurt Grimm. I'm from Hiawatha, Kansas, northeast Kansas. We're a Netafim dealer, and we also farm and use drip irrigation on our farm. So we cover a lot of the Midwest, work with both these growers here, installing, designing, and maintaining these systems, and have done a lot of work figuring out how to get manure clean enough to go through drip. Drip irrigation is a technology that we can use for water and nutrient management. In the last 4 to 5 years, we've been working on and working towards being able to use it also for effluent and manure that comes off these dairies and hog operations and some beef operations.
Todd Rokey with Rokey Farms. My brother and I own that operation in northeast Kansas. Have a swine and row crop operation. The swine operation's smaller on scale in today's world and industry. So we're going to be looking at with the effluent with 2 finishers that we have, that we're taking the effluent, pumping it into the drip irrigation system and applying it to the crop ground. Shortly after we installed the drip irrigation system, probably about 4 years ago, Kurt came to me and he said, I think Netafim's got a program here that's going to work on your farm with using the effluent. I said, hey, I'm on board. Let's take a look at it. So we've been doing that for about 3 years now.
And last but definitely not least.
Thank you, John. I'm Tim Wolf. I work for Netafim, the manufacturer. My role at Netafim is I'm agronomy support for the SDI and the SDI-E for primarily the Midwest corn soybean area, but wherever corn and soybeans grown in U.S. and Canada, help support that growth and drive that growth. So happy to be here.
Perfect. And I just want to set the stage a little bit further here to talk about drip irrigation, subsurface drip irrigation for effluent, and then go into some questions to kind of stimulate conversation and, again, make sure we leave enough time for as much audience interaction as possible. So first, I'll move the slide over to what SDI-E is, but go into a little bit of backstory about drip irrigation. So when people think about drip irrigation, you think about laying down the tube or tape on the surface, primarily in permanent crops. You think of a lot of it in California, and something that's been around since the mid-'60s, right? Technology that was innovated out of a kibbutz in Israel, brought here to the United States in the 70s and 80s, and utilized in that fashion, right? But as we think of how to continue innovating for nutrient management, for water management, and exploring different ideas and different opportunities, this is a unique opportunity that we brought to the table along with partners. And I want to go into that a little bit and then get into questions. What is unique about this from the beginning was that this was developed out of a need from farmers. They came to us along with conservation organizations and the United States Department of Agriculture and said, I need a new way to manage my effluent for my feedstock. And so can we do this through drip irrigation? And so our experts, some of them are in the room right now, along with the conservation programs at the USDA, the conservation organization being Sustainable Conservation, along with the farmers and work together to develop the technology, the filtration, the solutions that worked to apply the effluent on the feedstock and create a full circular model on the farm. So as we think of drip irrigation, it's just for trees, permanent crops, fruits, vegetables, and some, you have some with some of the more extensive crops and commodity crops. This is a unique way that we continue to develop the technology into these areas, meeting the needs and listening to the farmers to bring them what they need for these types of solutions. So I'm going to go to being the growers at the table, okay? And we all have an agronomy background, but I'll go to Todd and Adam first, okay? So maybe Adam, since you're closest to me, we'll start with you, okay? And the question is, tell us about your operations and why you sought to invest in this solution, and what excites you about it? Like, what about this excites you the most in terms of management that can be, scaled to the audience in the room for their interest as well?
Yeah, scale is going to be a big factor for us because we look at the return on the investment. So backing up, what got us into this was the regulatory requirements, how to handle the rainwater that hits the feed pad of the dairy, and we have to collect that, and then we had to dispose of it like manure. And there is some nutrients there, but it's definitely not the nutrient load of a manure. And so we had to dispose of it like manure, so it costs the same to dispose of, the pumping costs, and we have a slide on that coming.
Your slide is up now, yeah.
Okay, and so that's kind of the economics of it. What's exciting about it is it pays back quick. We can get the farmer on board easily with this, and it lowers the cost of production at the dairy, which is going to allow us to stay competitive in producing a commodity. So it's a win-win-win. I like to have a win-win-win, three-way win in any deals we like to do. And so the scalability is it's a bright future, and what we don't know a lot about yet is the agronomy side, and that's where Kurt and the agronomists come into play. But we're learning more about yield and increasing returns for the crop as well.
Yeah, we'll get to the agronomy side in a second, but Todd, do you want to continue on that?
Actually, I'll just echo everything Adam said. So I got started on it because of anybody that has livestock realizes that we've got to do something with the effluent. And if I can do that and do it efficiently, and not only that, just the ability to get rid of it sometimes that's the biggest priority. We've got to do something with it. Let alone the nutrient value that might be there. So as Adam was talking on the ROI, and it's on my slide as well, and my small little operation, there's an ROI of 3 years, depending on how you want to figure it for your operation. It's quick payback. But I'm not counting the nutrient value. This is just doing something with the product that we don't want winding up in our water tables and our streams and those kind of places. So the conservation aspect of it is a great story as well, and gets me excited as well. Is a good option here with what we're doing.
And how long have you been using this technology on your farm?
So I've been doing that 3 years. We've had it set up. The first year we had a little bit of a slow start trying to figure it out, and last year ran into some more challenges, but we're working on those, working through those, and making sure and learning as we go. As Adam says, we don't know a lot. I can't put our finger on and evaluate the agronomy side of it quite yet. I don't have data that I can present to you on that, but it's there, it's real, and it's something we're going to keep working at.
And then, how are you managing? These aren't questions that are on my sheet, so I might be going a little bit rogue here. But what were you doing? How were you managing effluent before this solution was employed on your farm?
Sure. So in our operation, that would have to be hired out. I have to hire someone to come in and bring a drag line, for those of you familiar with that, and pay someone to take care of that every year for me. Now, with the way we're set up, we've got our own pumping station set up, pumping that directly into the drip line, into the water source, and putting it on the crop ground, and I can do that whenever I want. All through the growing season, even when I'm sleeping. That's a good way to get rid of effluent.
That's farming right there.
Yeah. And then for both of the growers, this may be a little bit more detail, but you guys both took advantage of the EQIP program as well in doing the solution on your farm, or you did not use it?
No,
Okay.
I was not able to have access to that.
Okay.
I'll
And
maybe
then
just-
we'll go into Kurt next. So Kurt, go ahead and chime in.
Yeah, I'll maybe just speak to that a little bit. So on the EQIP program for growers that have existing irrigation and can convert a system, they can get EQIP funding, but in the Midwest right now, we don't have the EQIP available for this technology.
Not yet. Okay. Well, let's stay with Kurt real quick, and then I'll start out with a question for you and have some follow-ups here. How has the technology evolved over the past 3 years? And what does the future look like?
Yeah, so I think what's evolved is when we first started, we were looking at only doing outdoor lagoons. We were looking at doing products that didn't have a high solids content, typically less than 2% is where we need to be. And in the last, even just within the last 18 months, we've been able to go into sites that have a deep pit hog barn. We're doing some testing right now at Adam's operation with some manure that has a solid content between 10 and 12%. We're removing those solids, getting it down to where we're just left with the liquid. So it's kind of opening the doors now for confinement operations that have deep pits, being able to use that material as well is probably some of the newest things we're doing. So that really, that opens the market up for us and gives us a lot more options.
So along those lines, let's stay on the topic of SDI-E, but for those growers either in the room or watching this later that do not have livestock operations but maybe grow, yield for feed or other purposes, is this a technology they can use as well? Do you have to have a, livestock operation?
Right, so 90% of the customers we work with don't have livestock. So for anybody without livestock, this is still a technology for applying water and nutrients during the season at the root zone. It's a really successful implementation when you can remove weather variables, you can spoon feed the crop throughout the year, and now with the ability to replace synthetic fertilizer with effluent, that's an even additional value add.
And that effluent can be from differing farms brought to yours to use as well. Have you seen that employed in your areas?
We are. So we have interest guys, cleaning it. We had one producer in northern Iowa this past year. He had manure that was 15 miles away from the drip system. We set up a frac tank at the drip field, and he just had a truck during the growing season, brought that manure and delivered it to the field, and we injected it in. So lots of options.
And then one last question for you. I'm kind of formulating in my head right now, so bear with me here. But what are some of when growers or customers come to you and say, "Hey, I'm looking to do this," what's the biggest challenge they're looking to overcome with their operations?
Yeah, usually it has something to do with variable weather, like variable yield. They're trying to stabilize yield. They're trying to do better with land they already have, right? Everybody wants to produce more. Land values have gone through the roof. So how do we take the land base we already have and increase production 30 or 50%? That's the goal. And in some cases with livestock guys, we're trying to lower cost of production. So what technology is out there that you can actually lower cost of production?
Okay. And then Tim, this is kind of the last scripted questions that I have for the panel, and then we can have some follow-ups and create some dialogue there too. But looking at the agronomy side, okay, and each one of our panelists brought up agronomy, right? Some of the what's to come, what are the opportunities on the agronomy side. But I'll start the conversations with what's the nutrient value in this water that's being applied right now?
Well, it varies. I'm an agronomist, so the answer is always it depends. But there's a fair amount of nutrient value in the water and also in the solids. So we would apply the water through the drip system and utilize the solids, and we can haul the solids further away in practical sense and utilize that.
From a broader agronomy perspective, let's take a step back rather than go into specific questions. What is the agronomic story that you think that you want to tell regarding the solution for the different audiences that are going to employ this technology?
Yeah, there's a number of key points that I want to share with you. First of all, from a practical standpoint, from the application standpoint, the system that's currently being used, these guys talked about drag lines or mechanically applying it. If you're from up north, like I'm from up north where we have a lot of winter, we have a really short application window after harvest, before freeze up, or in the spring. It may be from when I can get on that field and not produce a lot of compaction to when I plant the crop. So depending on the year, that application window may be really short. SDI-E will open up in season application of nutrients, which is much more efficient, and we can apply it in multiple meals through the growing season. You're going to get more efficiency, more effectiveness, If you're not in the North Country, you may reduce the risk of off movement of nutrients. Todd was talking about that. If you apply it on the surface, it could move off. I'm not utilizing 100% of the goodie in the effluent, so I would be able to apply it again under the ground at 12 or 14 inches deep, right into the root system area. So I can reduce the risk of that. Another method of applying effluent currently is through overhead sprinkler irrigation. And you can lose a lot of nutrients in the air, a lot of nitrogen in the air, but also that's a greenhouse gas, nitrous oxide. So the friendliness of that is going to continue to be more and more regulated, more and more limited. So you're losing some nutrients if you're spraying it into the air. And so if you, again, apply it below the surface, we can capture all of that nutrient. So about the nutrients, I've already talked about this, but it bears mentioning again. There's an efficiency. We see it with commercial fertilizer. There's an efficiency when we apply right when or right before the plant needs that particular nutrient, whether it's NPK or any of the micronutrients. And the other thing that's even more important, and we're realizing this as we learn more about the biology, is that effluent is a great carbon that will feed our soil biology. So it's a soil health stimulator, and it will improve our soil health by using that effluent. And so we'll be able to improve our soil health, improve the biology, improve the environment in the soil where the root system is to help the plant be more efficient and more effective with the nutrients in that effluent.
And right now, we're talking about livestock. Is it what livestock are we talking about? Is it just dairy? Are we talking about different forms of livestock at this point?
Yeah,
Tim,
we're focused on dairy and swine, but as Kurt mentioned, we certainly will work with beef as well, or even other livestock. It's a part of a greater, larger picture for Netafim. We've been in wastewater, even human wastewater, and so this is a part of a larger focus for Netafim. But the two that we're focused on mostly right now is dairy and swine, with the others to come along with.
And this is a question for the panel. Maybe it's more towards the growers as well as you, Kurt, but we're hearing more and more regulations come with effluent management, lagoons management. I think that was mentioned earlier. Are you seeing that in your areas as well, and how this type of solution can help meet those either current or future regulatory requirements?
Yeah, absolutely. Regulations just get to be more and more, and especially us being a large livestock facility and several large livestock facilities, and we're bound by state regulations. We worry about our reputation with the county, state, and the national level, and just so we can keep operating, so we can keep our, as they say, social license to operate. And as when I grew up as a kid, I grew up on a farm, a beef farm. We raised beef cattle, feedlot, and we raised hogs in straw floor barns when I was young. And to get rid of the manure, it was the closest field that we had, and tried. I mean, there wasn't a lot of management to it. Now, as these regulations have come into place, you can like them or not like them, but they're here, and they have made us better. And so that's the point, is doing a better job with management of it. And what I really am excited about the SDI-E thing is it takes a waste product for the dairy that we didn't have to deal with before. We didn't have to keep it. We didn't have to retain it. And so the nutrient level's a little lower, quite a bit lower than manure. And the farmer, to get rid of this, the farmer wasn't that excited about us putting a bunch of water out on his land in the fall. We had a lot of other work to do in the fall, so this spreads the workload out for the dairy. The farmer is excited about it being on his land now, versus we have to go talk guys into it or maybe pay something to get rid of it. So it's just it's a big win for us all around. So the regulation side that's not going away. That's going to get more and more and more. So we got to really be proactive on how we handle that in the future.
Any other thoughts on that from?
I would just echo all that as well. My operation's small enough, I'm not heavily regulated, but regulations are real. And I like Adam's approach to the fact, yeah, we can talk about regulations forcing us to do something. It's bigger than that. I'm talking we, I think everyone in this room, as growers, we want to do things that are going to be environmentally friendly, they're going to be socially friendly, they're going to keep a good image. And so this is just a good tool to make that all happen.
Yeah, and a couple things I would add to that. So, you know, in the past, especially on livestock operations that maybe don't have a large land base, it was always, how many gallons an acre can I put out, right? If I can do 5,000, well, why not do 6,000 gallon an acre and get rid of this stuff and cover less acres, because that was more economical. Well, now the conversation is shifting. We have high fertilizer cost, and guys are saying, how few of gallons can I put out? Spread that out over more acres, or sell it to my neighbor, or how can I look at that manure in the barn as an asset versus a liability? And then in the environmental sense of it, we're working with some sensor companies that are measuring nitrate. And one of the things we learned this year, and it wasn't on a manure system, but just a regular nitrogen application, is we're losing a lot more nitrate through our soil profile than we thought. And so there's some new technology that we're working with, and I'm thinking about how does that apply in a livestock operation. Where is that nitrate going? What is that going to look like in some of those fields? And we look forward to looking at that this year. And in conversations in Nebraska, in particular, where they have high nitrate in the groundwater, those regulations are coming, and they're probably coming very fast. I was in a meeting last week, and the speaker said there's a speed limit on your road that tells you how fast to go, and pretty soon there's going to be a limit on how much nitrogen you can apply. And so I think all those things are coming, and they're coming fast.
Yeah, and you know, when you think of, again, I'll go back to when people think of irrigation, it's primarily water use. How can we be more efficient with our water, use less water, grow more? This is kind of breaking through that mindset of this type of irrigation is not just about water management, it's more. And Adam, you know, I work in sustainability. You know, I lead that on behalf of Netafim, but your comment of social license to operate is one that resonates with me, right? And it's not just, we do our work as a company to have a social license to operate with being sustainable, but it's the same thing for the farms and with your community and making sure we are using our natural resources in a positive way. Before I open up, we have about, 7 minutes left for Q&A. Are there any additional thoughts from the panel before I open anything up from the crew? Why don't we, Alyssa has a microphone here, as well as some cows with some capes on them if you want one. If anybody has a question for the panel, please, I guess raise your hand. Alyssa has a wireless mic here, and we can try to drive some conversation from the audience too. And don't everybody raise your hand at once, please. I know it's tough. I know.
I would invite our
We have two over
booth
here.
number is 1023, and a lot of us will be around at that booth this week. If you want to have a more in-depth conversation, please stop by our booth, and we can visit a little bit more about it.
This question right back here.
Yes, this, I guess for Adam, on your dairy operation, what is your bedding source? And I guess for the Netafim guys, do you have experience working with a sand-laden bedding source that you can clean up enough to get to run through the irrigation tape?
Okay, let's start with Adam first and then go to.
So we use separated manure solids for bedding. Our manure goes, in some cases, goes through a digester. Going to be more and more of that coming up, and then through screw press and make the bedding material, and then so our bedding is that. So as far as sand, we don't have a lot of experience in the sand.
I would speak to that just a little bit. There is equipment available to separate that depending on there's sand lanes, there's hydrocyclones, there is equipment to remove that. And so, yeah, every farm's going to be a little different how it's going to need to be set up to get it clean enough, but it is doable.
Yeah, the only thing I'd add to that is, it's all about the filtration. So we take the raw product, filter it down so it'll go through the dripper in the drip line. And every bedding source, every situation, we can have a different solution, multiple steps oftentimes. The beautiful part about a lot of the different systems that we've worked with is we don't lose a lot of nutrient concentration. So we really like, to focus on what does the plant need, how can we get the most goodie out of that effluent.
Next question.
What have you found to be the most desired depth to install the tape at?
I'll start. I'm sure the other guys will have their comments. I'm an agronomist, and so I'm focused on the plant, and so I want to feed the plant as long and as hard as I can with water and nutrients, whether they're commercial or effluent. I like it as shallow as you can do it, because the shallower the dripper line, the sooner I can touch it as a plant when it's small. And if I'm shallow, I'll be able to touch it through the whole season. Now, there's a practical side to that as well. If you're a tillage guy, we want to stay away from the tillage. We don't want you hitting the dripper line. So we've landed, historically, when we started this 25 years ago, we were down 18, 20 inches deep. We keep shallowing it up. It was at 16 for a while. Now we're 12 to 14 with some systems, up to 10 and even 8 inches deep. And again, I'm an agronomist. I want you to be as shallow as possible. The other thing that you need to think about is the system will last 20, 25. We've got systems that are over 30 years old. So don't just think about what am I doing this year, what will evolve in that 20 or 25 years. I mean, I was a farm kid, 40 years ago. We do a lot of different things on our farm today than we did, 40 years ago. So you need to kind of think about, will I change my crops? Will I plant higher populations? Will I be narrower rows? Will I be less aggressive tillage, which is kind of the trend right now. There's a lot of things happening. How do I build my system not only for this year, but for the future as well?
So Ray Gasser from Iowa, and we're working a lot with Iowa Smart Agriculture, and it's about thinking more circularly in agriculture, and we talk about the circle of life, and animal waste is a big part of that circle of life, we think. But can you tell us a little bit about moving the waste from maybe farm to farm and farm to field? What's a practical distance there to do that?
So I would say less than 5 miles is practical. Moving liquid of any kind, water or manure, through a pipeline is, I would say, 5 miles. So yeah, we can go a long distance. Some of the systems Adam has, there would be some networks they have that are farther than that, I think. So there's a lot of options. A lot of times we look at the field right around the livestock unit and we think we're limited to that. On our own farm in northeast Kansas, we're pushing water through a 12-inch pipeline, I think 6 miles. So it's really not that expensive to move product through a pipeline.
We call it a manure transfer line. The word pipeline tends to inflame some people, so it's called a manure transfer line on our farm. But we go out from each farm we build. Our farms are average size of 10,000 cows each. So we go all 4 directions with 14 to 16 inch pipe. We use HDPE pipe for safety. Like we mentioned, we use a drag hose system to inject the manure in the fields, and so it works really well to go 3 miles each direction and bring up risers in the center of the section. So you combine a field of, or you chop a field of corn over here and you got crops all around it. 2 miles away, you just open the valve and it underground manure transfer line and hook up the hose there and apply on that field. And it saves money because we don't have to apply a hose from the lagoon all the way to every field. So that's our system we've been working on for 15 years. We've been putting in this manure transfer line around our farms.
So I appreciate that last question was asked by my good friend Ray over there. Ray and Ernie, these guys drive international discussions on circularity in agriculture. And I can think of no better example than what we are doing at the table right now through a circular model for effluent management in ag. So I encourage all of you to continue that thought process and discussion on circularity and how we can all be more sustainable in our agriculture operations. I'd like to thank our panelists at the table here. Give them a round of applause, please. And we'll be around afterwards as well in our booth for any questions. Thanks a lot.